Good morning. My name is Ashish Kumar and I am part of IBM India. I can also be contacted at ashishk4@imobile.com. Today I am going to showcase and demonstrate CentOS built on PPC64 architecture. As part of this demonstration, what I will show is, first I will take us through a quick overview of CentOS built on PPC64. Thereby, I will show how you get started, where do you get your source from, and how do you do your first RPM build. Once you have been successful with that, as a next step, you would like to set up a PPC64 mock build setup. And once you have been successful with mock build setup, all you need to do is have full CentOS source code base built on PPC64 using mock build. And I will also show you few sample mock builds. And finally, I would like to conclude with what is the current status of CentOS built on PPC64 and how we can work together on this journey. So let me give a quick overview of CentOS built on PPC64. Here are a few steps that you would like to adopt to get started on PPC64 build of CentOS. As a first step, you would like to identify few source code that you would like to build. For example, in my scenario, I have taken two packages. One is time and another is DHCP. As a first step, what I will do is I will get the source code of time from CentOS Git repository, which is git.centos.org. Once I have fetched the source code, I would do a local RPM build of time and DHCP using RPM build utility. Once I have been able to successfully do an RPM build, what I will do is I will identify a bare minimum list of packages of CentOS that we would need to do an RPM build for. That would be a prerequisite before we get started on mock build of full-fledged CentOS release. Once we have been able to complete the RPM build of bare minimum CentOS packages, we classify it as a complete bootstrap build on PPC architecture. Once we have the RPM build and bootstrap build on PPC architecture, the next step would be to initiate a mock build setup. As part of the mock build setup, you will initiate with a mock configuration file setup, which is in /etc/mock. Once you have been able to start on building the mock configuration file, you would also need to build a local repository of bare minimum list of CentOS packages that you just built, and point this local repository in the CentOS config file, in the mock config file, Once that is through, what you need to do is you take the source code of entire CentOS distro and you start to build the CentOS distro using mock build. You loop through the entire set of packages and then finally reach a stage where we build all the source RPMs using mock on PPC architecture. So let me show you the environments that I have. So this is my development environments where I have been building CentOS packages. So let me show you what is the Linux distribution I am on. So what I have is a Fedora 19 server, and which is a PPC64 architecture of Fedora 19. So now what I will do is, as I indicated, I will select time as my package which I would like to build over here. So I will first do a few setups so that I have the proper directory structure before I start the source code build. So I'll create directory for all these sources. I'll get into source directory, and then I'll fetch few common set of scripts that will be handy as we go along with the build, which is git clone https://git.centos.org/git/CentOS hyphen git common dot git. This will fetch me few handy set of scripts for building the source code. So let me get into that and show you few scripts over here. So one of the most important and common script that I will often use is this getSource.sh. So now what I will do is, I have the scripts which will be very handy for me. I'll check out the source code of time. So I'll say git clone, let me do a setup for that, git.centos.org/git/rpms/time.git. So this will be creating, sorry, so this will create a directory called time for me, and now I'll go inside time and I'll start the git checkout setup. Git checkout C7, that should create me a directory structure in completeness. So right now, if you see, we have time.spec. Now I have to get sources, should have this. So this is a setup directory structure with build scripts in place. Now let me get the actual source code. I indicated about the script that will help me in getting the source. So if I now go to the sources, I should be able to get this time. So what I'll do now is, I have the build scripts, I have the source code. Now I would start the RPM build. So I will go to the time directory and start the RPM build. So I'll execute the RPM build utility, which is RPM build define percentage distribution PPC64 dot CentOS, and then I will say minus VA specs. So I will now give the CentOS build. So you see that the exit status is 0. So what happened as a result of this? If you look at srpms interesting directory, you will see a CentOS source RPM for PPC64 which was built, and then if go to RPMs, you will see a directory called ppc64, and then you will see uh, ppc64 build RPMs, right? So now what I'll do is, so this is the completion of my RPM build commands. So what I would now do is, as I indicated earlier, I would, once my RPM build is complete of a sample package, I would go ahead and start a full-fledged build of a bare minimum list of packages. So a bare minimum list of packages we have already identified here. So I'll show you. And I'll go to source, I'll go to so these are my bare minimum list of packages, as you can see. So I have already got a bare minimum list of packages over here, and I will do an RPM build of the entire suite. For that, I have an automated simple script, if I can show that to you, which just loops through the entire bare minimum list and does an RPM build. Straightforward, you concatenate the list and then be able to do a git clone, and then finally do get sources, and then do RPM build, and finally you copy the RPMs and SRPMs, which are the output of your RPM build, to a common location. So once we are done with RPM build, let me go back to mock build now. So if you remember, I had this source, and then within that I had this CentOS git commons, and then within that I had this time. That's where I had done the RPM build. So let me show you the mock configuration file now. So I'll go to /etc/mock /c7-ppc64-fc19. So these are some of the settings that we have. You have root as this, and then base directory, you have this, and then you have all the required configuration files. The most important part of this build is this base repos. So here what I did was, in the previous steps we had completed the bare minimum list of packages. So I created a local repository of bare minimum list of packages, and that's what I have indicated over here. And then there were few packages which for mock we required as fc19 packages, so we have taken few fc19 packages. So now let me go ahead and do a mock build for us. So what I'll do is say mock straightforward -r c7-ppc64, give the name of the configuration file fc19, -result dir, print working directory, and then srpms this. So it's asking access to the root because it's trying to access the configuration file, so I'll give my root. That can also be avoided. Okay, I just need to correct this. I don't need to give this. It automatically appends CFG, and then it should go ahead, and now the mock build is progressing. And once it completes, and now if I do ls minus LTR, you would see that time source RPM is over here. Then you have CentOS build package, this package. Now what I would do next is, once I have been able to build these successfully, I would add these built ones to the local CentOS repository and then update the local CentOS repository. Now what I will do next is, I will go ahead and show you how do I build the entire list of packages. Similar to what I showed for entire list of RPM builds, now I will go ahead and show you the entire list of CentOS packages using mock. So I'll go to su CentOS, and then I'll go to mock CentOS FC19, and then I'll show you simple, straightforward. I loop through the list of all the packages which I have fetched from the repository, and then for each one of them I execute the mock builds. Once I execute the mock builds, I copy the successfully built ones to the local repository and update the repo in the loop. And this is the script I loop in to continue for a few days till we get to a successful build stage. So with this, the mock build setup is complete, and this is exactly what I wanted to show to you. So this completes the whole demonstration of mock build of CentOS 7 packages. With that, I would like to hand over to KB and open the floor for further question and answer. Thank you.